And the change of government won't stop a thing. I've run out of fingers counting the number of multinationals setting up here.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
Words to last month's language and next month's words await another voice. Well, this voice will be coming to you live from the Kampala Serena Hotel, and on this first day of October, only 3 months away from the end of 2014. What have you done on your resolutions? Morning at NTV will help you kickstart this brand new month. And as usual, your question of the day. Question this morning starts our show, and help us answer that. Very simple. Go to our Facebook page, Morning at NTV, and of course you can tweet us at Morning at NTV. And the first 5 respondents will each walk away with a beautiful mug from Morning at NTV. And SMS platform is 6565. Meanwhile, we are celebrating 8 years here at NTV, and to celebrate with you, we have decided to give back to you. So we're giving you 100 motorbikes in 100 days. And as usual, we're also doing one thing, giving you 8 gift hampers. Just like that, man, just like that. So there's a code that will appear in the left-hand corner of your screen. Send it to quadruple 6. That is quadruple 6. And good luck to all of you at 6 o'clock. Robin will be here to give our lucky winners some very good hampers. If you're tweeting, just hashtag NTV8, that is 8IGHT. And of course, head over to our new website, which is ntv.co.ug. Even in the common room, you know that room, you can still catch corner while you're also cornering your things. It's NTV Mobi. And of course, this morning, we're still going on with who may assume the duties of the Secretary General or not. Let's find out in the stories that are shaping the headlines this morning.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Cassie, Mabel K and Ryan Mulundo.
Top story. The Parliament has
to
thank the outgoing Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Mbabazi, for serving with humility and for departing with humility.
Kinki's West MP Mbabazi, a long-time friend of Dr. Rugunda, then took the floor. And Mbabazi, who said he had known Dr. Rugunda for the last 56 years, said they were allies in the struggle that brought the NRM government to power.
The veterans of our struggle put their lives on the line They have dedicated their lives to their country and deserve to be recognized for their commitment. Rugunda is such a veteran.
Mbabazi overshot the 3 minutes for contributions on the floor, and MPs asked the Speaker to give him more time, which was granted.
When I hand over, as soon as he's ready to receive the instruments of authority of the office of the Prime Minister, which I still hold, I will have the opportunity to say more. But congratulations, Dogo. You will enjoy my full support throughout your tenure of office. Thank you.
Of the 225 MPs present, 217 voted to approve Dr. Rugunda, 4 against, while 4 abstained.
We will be on implementation of many infrastructure projects that are underway, roads, railways, and many other things. And we will also continue to prioritize improved service delivery to the people of Uganda.
Speaker Rebecca Kadaga urged the new Prime Minister to urgently bring to Parliament constitutional and electoral reforms and about 65 bills that were lined up. But above all, she asked Dr. Rugunda to create good working relations with Parliament.
The communication channels between your office and the office of the Speaker should be open and accessible for smooth coordination of business in Parliament.
Agnes Nandutu, NTV, Parliament.
Well, massive congratulations going out to Dr. Livingstone Ruhakana Rugunda. He is officially now the new Prime Minister of Uganda. Now, as the NRM wrangles continue over the party register, former Prime Minister John Patrick Amama Mbabazi, who is now the Secretary General, has told off those calling him to hand over the register, saying that it's in safe hands. Amama says it's his mandate to keep party documents, but on Monday evening, the Parliamentary caucus resolved to create a new party register and also barred members from holding 2 positions in the party and in government. Caucus Vice Chairman David Bahati says the caucus no longer trusts the register the former Premier is holding on to. Maurice Ochoa reports.
On Monday, NRM lawmakers trooped to State House Entebbe for caucus meeting to discuss the report of the Seninde Committee. The committee, chaired by Wakiso woman MP Rosemary Seninde, reviewed the chaotic NRM party primaries of 2010. And key among the matters tackled was the party register that is still in private hands instead of the party secretariat. NRM Secretary General Mama Mbabazi, who is the custodian of the party documents and assets, did not attend the meeting. Sources in the meeting told NTV that Chief Whip Kasule Lumumba called out Mbabazi's name and there was no response. The president then reportedly said that the party constitution gives him wide-ranging powers as party chairman and that he would do some of the work reserved for the Secretary General. In a thinly veiled message, NRM caucus Vice Chairman David Bahati, who was addressing journalists at Parliament, made statements that could mean that Mbabazi would remain a lame duck Secretary General.
It is written on the wall in black and white is that if the MP for Chichi's West, Mama Mbabazi, who is now legally a Secretary General of the party, chooses to continue being a Secretary General of the NRM party, will certainly be ineffective given the circumstances.
The NRM register was compiled by Mbabazi's daughter Nina Mbabazi, who is demanding the party over 4 billion shillings for the work before she can release it. Bahati, who was unveiling the caucus resolution, said the party has decided to compile a new register.
We don't have any trust in the current register. That's why the party members are saying we need a fresh register.
NRM legislators see that the act of Mbabazi and his daughter holding on to the party register as betrayal.
We are not starting from zero. We already have one, though we were supposed to have members registered continuously.
I find it in order, and in fact, we should have done it yesterday even than today.
Hold a party register in your own office or your own home and then say it is for the party members.
But speaking outside Parliament after attending a debate on the approval of Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda as a successor, former Prime Minister Mbabazi said the registrar custody since he is mandated as NRM Secretary General to keep party documents.
But the register is in its rightful place. The register is kept by the Secretary General, and that's what's happening.
The NRM caucus resolved that no member would hold two positions in party ranks and in the executive. This has been a contentious matter since 2010, with Mbabazi previously put under pressure to quit either Prime Minister or Secretary General.
You can imagine a member, somebody is a treasurer, is a chairperson of a district, he's a minister.
Under the NRM constitution, the Secretary General is elected by the National Conference, and it's only that body that can remove him or her. So unless Mbabazi resigns, he will stay on until the next National Conference in 2015. Maurice Achol, NTV.
Sacking last week, former Premier Mbabazi and position as NRM Secretary General has of late come under scrutiny, with some thinking that he's most likely to be forced out before his term expires next year. But NRM Deputy Spokesperson Ofono Opondo says that he can only be removed when credible complaints are forwarded to the highest decision-making organ, the Central Executive Committee. But some political watchers believe that Mbabazi's downfall from party ranks may be precipitated if past unresolved controversies involving him are reignited. Moses of Mbabazi's life in the ruling party.
President Yoweri Museveni first appointed immediate former Prime Minister Amama Mbabazi to cabinet in 1992 as State Minister for Defense. At one point, Mbabazi, who was ejected from cabinet only 2 weeks ago, was referred to as Super Minister due to the several portfolios he held at the same time. It took Mbabazi 19 years to ascend to the fourth most powerful position in government, to cement his position as President Museveni's right-hand man. That is probably why his sacking took many by surprise, and it's perhaps why some people now think his position as Secretary General is also untenable.
His power, I think, is going to be largely diminished, but he has those who believe in him. He has a network, he has business associates, he has political supporters, and we see that they are not relenting.
Shortly after he was sacked, Mbabazi pledged to concentrate on his work as NRM Secretary General.
As you know, I'm the Secretary General of the party, and we have a lot of work to do. I will execute it.
Critics say the NRM party is fused with the state. Now, some of Mbabazi's senior NRM colleagues, like Vice Chairman for the East, Captain Mike Mukula, thinks he should quit or be removed from the party's Central Executive Committee, since he has fundamentally disagreed with the chairman, President Museveni.
I do not see in the short run Honorable Amama Mbabazi pleading with the president, but I see him not going into confrontation, at least in the short run.
Deputy NRM spokesman Ofono Opondo says Mbabazi cannot be removed unless someone files a credible complaint against him in the party's top policy organ, CEC.
And the state then can make recommendation to the National Conference. That is the only organ that can remove the Secretary General, because that is the organ that elects the Secretary General, not any other organ.
For now, Opondo says no such complaint has been filed. Mbabazi's term as Secretary General expires next year, ahead of the delegates' conference. But Dr. Karyaija, a public policy donor at Uganda Management Institute, fears that Mbabazi's controversial past may now come back to haunt him.
We believe his innocence, but we know that the state is also inherently criminal. It can turn against you.
As all this plays out in the media, a silent but visible pro-Mbabazi campaign manifests on the streets in the form of posters and T-shirts. This poster of Mbabazi is hidden here at the corner, and most people who are walking by may not know about the presence of this poster here. There's nothing much written on it except the name Amama Mbabazi, and the silence on this poster reflects the silence of the man himself, and this speaks volumes, of course.
I don't think there will be any iota of funding, assignment, expectation if Honorable Mbabazi is going to mobilize, he has to use the structures that they claim he has created, which are outside the official party structure.
Dr. Kariaija feels the time is now or never for Mbabazi.
He would rather not even join the opposition. That is my view, because either he proves himself within NRM, or he lies low, becomes an ordinary citizen like the rest of us, goes into either farming or something else, or contest.
While he calculates his move, he will nonetheless be studying how those who have fallen out with the president in the past have traded.
At NTV, and of course, we'll be following the Mbabazi story and the NRM closely. What happens when a convict starts serving their prison sentence at the Luzira Women's Prison? Well, in our continuing series this morning, Serwanja looks at what happens in their lives from dawn till dusk.
Luzira Women's Prison are run on time, and the inmates have to live by the rules. The rehabilitation session, where the inmates are trained in the various activities, are conducted between 9 a.m. and midday. At exactly midday, the lunchtime bell goes and everyone is expected to go to the kitchen.
The prisoners cook themselves, whichever food they want to cook. If you can't afford to cook food of your own, there is always food served in the kitchen.
Some of the inmates prefer to have their lunch outside. Lunch is only 1 hour. It's to watch TV, while others, it's time to do our fellowships on radio.
Then they also play netball and volleyball. They normally have competitions between the wards. Maybe Ward 1 can play with Ward 2, then the remands can play with the convicts. This is to help them to keep fit while they're in what? While they're in prison.
During this time, the inmates are also given an opportunity to meet their visitors in the visitors' room, but only for a maximum of 15 minutes.
The visitors in Luzira Women's Prison come in 3 days, that is Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays from 9 up to 4 o'clock. Then the lawyers are allowed in from Monday up to Friday from 9 up to 4 o'clock.
Prison authorities, with the help of the ward leaders, double items brought for the inmates by their relatives to ensure that nothing banned finds its way in. At exactly 4 p.m., the bell goes off and every inmate is expected to be in their wards. But before they settle in, prison warders conduct physical roll calls and a head count. The wards have a varying number of inmates depending on their size. This ward has 32 inmates. Every ward has a toilet and bathrooms inside. The cardinal rule here is cleanliness. The inmates are also allowed to watch TV.
Then at around 5, prayer, then at least by 7 they should be ready to sleep.
Lights remain on in the wards throughout the night to constantly monitor the inmates. For some of the inmates, this encumbrance is a plus, especially during the examination period, allowing them to read at night. Every ward is manned by a female prisons officer throughout the night, who is also responsible for a head count of the inmates when dawn breaks. In the next episode of Inside Luzira Prison, we take you inside the Maction Bay Men's Prison. Solomon Serwanja, NTV.
Very good morning and welcome for joining us on this edition of Morning at NTV's Press Review. Must apologize for that technical hitch there, but certainly we are always, as always, set and ready to share with you what makes you the headlines on such a wonderful morning as we start a new month of October, today being the first day of October. We'll be right back with a look at the Daily Monitor, the Observer, and, of course, the Red Pepper. It's the first day of October 2014, just 2 months away from the end of the year. And yes, as always, NTV turning on your world. And on this wonderful, what can I call it, Wednesday morning, we're ready to share with you what makes it the headlines in the newspapers that we have with us. My name is Simon Kasiate. I'm joined by Joel Senyo. Good morning, Joel.
Good morning to you.
How are you doing?
Not bad at all.
Well, President Museveni says on the front page of the Daily Monitor that he will talk to the Honorable Mbabazi on the Secretary General role. What does this speak to? I am beginning to get the feeling that like sacking him from being Prime Minister is not bad enough. There seems to be a move to punch him even from the Secretary General role. After all, even the register that he's holding so close to his chest is the one that they are planning to get a new one.
I see on the Observer lead story here, Museveni says I can do Amama's NRM work, but in bold, very bold here, I'm still Secretary General, Amama Mbabazi says. You know, he's been putting this out as clearly as he possibly can. Yesterday night I did watch Andrew Mwenda saying that, look, Mbabazi is going to be sliced as Secretary General. And I think I differ. He's got a very short term to run as Secretary General, and I'm not too sure His Excellency the President wants to go down that route because it will require a lot of caveat. As Prime Minister, it was easy to fire him, he appointed him. But you see, it requires a lot of pulling of ropes, as opposed to Prime Minister, he could even have been out of the country and just by phone call I have fired you. But this one, it is a little bit harder. But they're going to enfeeble the man, you know, take away some of the powers, some of the roles. They've already done that. Todong is doing much of the work now. The President comes out and says, I can actually do Amama's NRM work. So that goes to show that, look, we are going to have him in position as Secretary General, but he will really not be the man in that office. He might sit there for the whole day and that kind of thing.
Well, if we move away from the Mama Museveni situation as is playing out and has been playing out for the last couple of months, let's look at some other news making it to the headlines. We are told that in every bad there is a bit of good. Perhaps they share the letter D. Amin Koni Chiwetere are set to become tourism products, says the Daily Monitor here, and they are quoting the Uganda Tourism Board saying that people now will be coming in here, of course, to enjoy tourism with regard to the remains of the atrocities committed by the 3 men whose names have been mentioned. Just like when you go to Germany, obviously, when you visit Auschwitz, I can't pronounce that name, but I can write it, that Nazi concentration camp, as it were, that is the place where you walk down memory lane of that very disturbing history. So perhaps Kanungu will be one of those places where we would go to see how over 20,000 people were, you know, charred up in flames. Of course, Joseph Kony may have to follow the trail of massacres from Balonyo to Atiak, and Idi Amin, of course. What else can one say? Looking out for the 1 million Ugandans he allegedly slay under his rule.
You see, it's interesting out there how much ignorance there is about, you know, Africa and the countries within Africa. You, for example, don't tell people you're going to Uganda. They have no clue what Uganda is. You say you're going to Africa. But again, there's people that believe Amin is still the president of Uganda. They will ask you about Idi Amin and the likes. And of course, I've had people say that, look, we can use this as, something that will, you know, build up our tourism and that kind of thing. I don't know. Can we look at the nicer things as opposed to, okay, this dictator, this brutal man, and that is what people come to know us for? I don't know. My thinking is we have some good things in this country. Let's portray those.
Even the bad, I think, now can bring in some money, as we have seen. Now we are seeing that there's a story that has, I didn't know, you know, for the last 1 week when I was away marooned in Jinja enjoying myself, I didn't realize that the NSSF story was still making it the headlines. So I'm surprised pleasantly that there is now the former Finance Minister Gerald Sendaula speaking out to a parliamentary committee and saying, look, the National Social Security Fund was not forced to purchase Umeme shares. And the story is here on page 5 of the Daily Monitor. Then what happened? How did they buy the shares? That is why you need to get yourself a copy of the Daily Monitor and find out what the Honorable Gerald Sendaula is actually speaking out to.
The Observer here reports Kidandala edging closer to mayorship. I don't think so. That is me. Legalize abortion. This is according to a doctor. We are losing so many young people. who are trying to abort the illegal way. They use all sorts of rudimentary mechanisms. Some, I don't know, they take Omo. Others, you know, go to these ramshackle structures and they use some weird gadgets on them, and along the way they lose their lives. And so the debate is back. The debate is back. My thinking is abortion, whether you do it legally or illegally, you're taking a life. Not right.
Well, let's not forget that yesterday the Right Honorable, now I'm told he's called David Livingstone Ruhakana Rugunda, did assume the reins of
I didn't know the Livingstone name.
Well, there we have it. We know
Just like many might not know that Mama Mbabazi is John Patrick and Mama Mbabazi.
Yes, I'm sure many of you do not know that I have another name other than Simon Peter Kasiati. So
clearly
when I become Prime Minister, all the names will come out on my resume.
I will fire you soon after I make you my Prime Minister.
Well, yesterday in a very good show of magnanimity and political maturity, the Right Honorable Ruhakana Rugunda did accept the vote that was passed by Parliament to endorse him further as Prime Minister, with a vote of over 200 votes coming in. And some, of course, as always, you in your tribe say, some 3 basiwufu in that house.
No, there were actually 4. 225 members were in Parliament, 4 abstained, 4 voted against, then 217 voted for the man. You would expect that, you know, he would get an overwhelming, unanimous majority.
It's overwhelming, yes.
And yes, it's overwhelming, but not unanimous.
Unanimous majority, yes, but not a unanimous vote, as in everybody accepts with him. Well, but like they say, again, well,
they're entitled to their views, their opinions. Why not?
And
but you see,
my argument has been, you see, Joel, if I find you by the roadside eating onto a mound of human fecal material, sorry if I'm being very gross, it is your right to do so, but clearly what you're doing is wrong, and someone needs to tell you.
So is it wrong for those that think Rugunda doesn't qualify for...
I mean, if in my view I feel that what their vote was a show of immaturity, in as much as that was their right, I mean, you can choose to pee by the roadside. That is your right. I mean, you are deciding to answer nature's call there. But in my view, I mean, look at you as someone whose faculties are certainly not very much together. And I will not stop at not simply because it is your right.
I don't
so to those possibly who, you know, I mean, you have every right to differ. I mean, you can differ from anything. But you see, when you differ from a largely agreeable norm, then people begin now to start questioning whether your difference was out of principle or you are simply putting on the table some nuisance factor.
Yeah, but who says... you know, the majority are supposed to always be right. Look, there are people who think, no, Mama Mbabazi was doing a good job. That is their opinion. Others could actually think, no, somebody else could actually do that job a lot better.
Yeah, but you're speaking to a different thing. I'm talking about Rugunda here.
It's the same thing, really. Of course, now, a protest vote. They're saying, no, we wanted our man, not this one. So we'll vote against him. Others might think, well, maybe it was wrong, or they could do a better job. I don't know what their reasons are, but...
You're very right, but I must inform you that these 4 who did not vote for Rugunda, certainly the reasons you've advanced, many as they are, were not certainly their reasons. Well, and of course, in a rare show of political maturity, Mbabazi did speak out and indeed say that Rugunda would never have been, they wouldn't have been a better choice for Prime Minister than his childhood friend Ndugu Rugunda, which I thought was quite very magnanimous.
He's coming up as a very euphemistic man, and that is why, I mean, that now gives credence to my opinion of, I don't see this man being thrown out as Secretary General, because, you know, they would require a disciplinary committee meeting, you know, to prove, you know, that he's against the party and so, but you see, he's coming out in a very gentlemanly, charitable manner. It's going to be very hard to fault him. They will take away their powers, but they're not going to take the position away.
You always refer to Dr. Gilbert Bukenya as my very good friend, which he certainly is. Let's try to do the parallels. I mean, and I know Dr. Gilbert Bukenya and Mama Mbabazi certainly don't eat from the same plate for one reason or other. But let's compare their reaction towards their sacking.
I mean, the writing is on the wall. You keep looking at Professor Gilbert Bukenya and you're thinking, really, really, go to your farm in Wakiso or wherever it is and relax. You have run your race. And talk about Gilbert Bukenya. The observer here, this is Bukenya telling Mbabazi, get ready for tear gas. Well, opposition MPs are admitting they are not delivering. Interesting.
They're admitting they're not delivering.
That is what they're saying. Of course, yeah, they said
they say it very clearly that delivering no one has ever accused them of delivering. So they had better not really go on. No one has ever and
for them to come out and say, no, you're cutting us too much slack. We're actually not delivering.
No one has ever accused the opposition MP, yeah, generally the whole that parliament, on delivering.
Of course, the debate they bring out here is considering the system. It's very hard for us, you know, the minority, to put out our points. Much of the time, there's rubber stamping and so on. That is what they seem to be saying here.
Exactly. Your ability to surmount all these hurdles right before you in doing your job is what makes you tick. Like
Absolutely.
I always argue, Joel, you have a million reasons as to why you could not wake up this morning to be here for this show.
But
like
this morning was a different one altogether.
So you do not have to wake up and then start. You see, now it rained, then I had to cuddle up with somebody in my bed, and so I couldn't make it for the show. I mean, clearly, your ability to make it here for the show, despite the several bottlenecks that come up your way, is what makes you tick. So members of parliament, opposition or otherwise, should not blame. And these are the hurdles on the job, and their ability to jump over those hurdles. Exactly, is what they knew that for a fact. When they went into that house and they realized there were 3 opposition members of parliament, or 1 from one party, did they expect to make any substantial contribution in the parliament where over 200 are from one party? Certainly not.
And talking of admissions, as opposition MPs admit that they are not delivering, a good professor, you know him, Professor Nwagaba, he once ran for Makerere vice chancellorship. He did not make it.
He wants to contest for the municipality parliamentary seat.
He wanted to for that, and along the way,
he has 2 years to go.
So that kind of thing. Anyway, but now he wants to join politics. He says, "Yeah, I'm quite the romantic." This is an admission by Professor Nwagaba.
Someone else should be saying that about him. The World Bank is asking development partners to blacklist Chinese company. Which company is this? We're talking about China International Water and Electric Corporation. What they do, that's a detail that you can only find.
There's all these Chinese things, and they always begin with China. China something, China technology, China underwater because of it, and whatever.
Well, let's look at the red paper this morning. Museveni speaks out on Mbabazi. Now we are being told that there is an NRM meltdown, which is exclusively being covered by this wonderful paper, and the details are here in the red paper. Get yourself a copy, including an attack on President Museveni from very likely quarters by an in-law of John Patrick Amama Mbabazi, and that was done on social media, picked up by the red paper this morning.
Quote of the day in the Daily Monitor. This is NRM Deputy Spokesman of Ono Pondo from Mbabazi Youth. I asks, are they the spokespersons of Amama Mbabazi? Or has Mr. Mbabazi come out to say that he is being mistreated? You know, that these youth going around all over the place saying, look,
so
you're mistreating our man.
Ono Pondo is saying that the youth are crying more than the bereaved.
Seems like. Because the man is coming out.
I don't think he has listened very carefully to the words of the Right Honourable Mbabazi's wife. If only he had time to have a chat with her, possibly she would share the same sentiments. Well, President Museveni is reported in the red paper this morning. He fired an ISO boss. Remember him, Major Muramaji, the guy who just came off the news from the General Court Martial over allegations of attempting to poison his bosses with a hyena's liver. Now this is quite very hilarious. He's now been fired by President Museveni. It's reported in the red paper this morning. But the spin is he's a pro-Mbabazi spy.
And there's many, you know, there's many people who are, well, some are publicly known, others are surreptitiously known.
What?
Surreptitiously. They are in different positions, and apparently they were planted there by Amama Mbabazi. You know, he was a very powerful man in government. Back then, as the cabinet list was made, you know, many people would run to him begging and pleading because he would contribute a great deal, recommending and that kind of thing. And so there's people leading institutions that are apparently pro-Mbabazi, and we are told they're in a very shaky state. We wait to see. Maybe there are going to be more sackings in this country.
Well, there's a lot more other stories making it the news in the red paper this morning, and the stories are coming in from across the country. We've got very local news coming in from the different districts and, of course, local councils. And, of course, the sleaze and gossip section of the red paper doesn't disappoint, especially when you're beginning a month like this one. Very many interesting stories. When you look at the sports side, where we're being told of a gunning down. Well, here we are. We're talking about the local league at Sports Club Villa with that football game they've had to play with Police FC. It's also being reported down here. The results are clearly on the wall.
There's a supplement here in the Daily Monitor. This is about the China National Day, and we're told China-Uganda ties are growing stronger. Stronger for who? For the Chinese, I like to imagine. Not so much for the Ugandans. Yes, we are getting a couple of structures. Some roads are being done here and there, but we need to open our eyes a lot wider,
Well, there's been a special report running in the Daily Monitor over the last couple of days on the Rwanda invasion anniversary. And in today's edition, we are being asked, or we are asking, and the question is in the Daily Monitor, whose answers we hope that will be provided. Was Rwigema assassinated? If you remember very well, the story taking you down memory lane to about sometime in 1994 with regard to remembering the time the Rwanda Patriotic Front or Rwanda Patriotic Army did invade that country and eventually emerged victors.
I did see something, an article here. Choose a good toothbrush here in the Observer. Well, some things are very little, you might say, but they contribute to many things, you know. I was having a chit-chat with some friends of mine. We were having a fellowship, and we were just talking about faith. You know how everybody should have their kind of faith, you know, and one statement came through that, you see, faith is like a toothbrush. Use it every day, but you cannot share it with another person, not even your wife.
What are you talking about? I know people who share toothbrushes. Why wouldn't they?
How many of those?
No, because especially if you say not with your wife. I mean, the argument could be if you... Anyway, this is morning TV. I don't want to
I see your argument, but you see, even with that argument, there are some will tell you, irrespective of whether our mouths will meet, but toothbrush, I don't know.
Well, they say that when life throws at you, lemons make lemonade. And in the next magazine this morning in the Daily Monitor, when you're faced with the trash, make money out of it. In this special feature, we are looking at a guy who's fighting unemployment with harnessing the trash that the world has got thrown to them. That is recycling garbage, for that matter. And in your favorite pull-out magazine every Wednesday, which is building and design of homes, we are being told when to start electrical and plumbing works if you are in the business of construction. It is a very interesting read. And of course, as always, the Seeds of Gold is also in the newspaper on every Wednesday. We're talking about the Daily Monitor. And today we're looking at the machine man. Yes, this is a man who specialized in making equipment for farmers, from rice ahoras to maize mills and all the others. Get yourself a copy of the Daily Monitor and see what it can offer in terms of enriching you and your quest to become a successful farmer.
This has caught my eye in the Observer. Eli Wamala 10-year tribute. You see, this man is remembered to date because he was one of those artists you liked to love. You look at many artists today, they are very talented, but they are lousy charlatans. They are either fighting or hitting at each other, coming out ferociously, and you're thinking, guys, can you concentrate on bettering yourselves? Many of them, we know them more for their fights and the likes, as opposed to their music. So we should pick a leaf from this man.
Well, there we have it, a tribute in the Observer, and I think on one of those weekend BAOs that I do somewhere, I will be hosting the daughter of Eli Wamala on a program called Desert Island Discs, where she will be sharing
Is that
her
Fiona
life.
Mkasa?
No, that is Lydia Wamala, and she will be sharing her life story, what it means to have been born and bred as a Wamala, and of course playing her dad's music. Favorite music, 5 of them.
Big up NTV, thanks for the support. Log in, ndiwa nole ronzi zeko kakasa.
Your coffee and you're watching Login.
Don't touch that dial, you know what I'm saying. It's Login.
We could do this all night. We could do this all night.
We transact every day, and for centuries, currencies have changed hands. Business is a must, and that is why Money Matters makes it a must to talk business.
The biggest market out in Uganda because of East African connections and business.
From farming to business trading, we give you all the angles.
When you're harvesting, that one is the most important part, which really have to be there.
We'll bring you all the details that doing business has to offer.
Thoughts of the business leaders in the market.
The airline industry doesn't operate like any other industry, where you go in and buy a shirt and this shirt is 20 shillings today, it will be 20 shillings tomorrow, 20 shillings.
The analysis of the costs and the income in the industries. From wherever we are, we talk business, and at Money Matters, where money indeed matters. Business is a must.
So, don't miss talking business with us every Thursday only on NTV.
More at NTV. Simon Kate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
It's the first day of October 2014, and yes, welcome to this edition of Morning at NTV's Big Story. My name is Simon Kasiati. This morning, 2 years to the next election, or perhaps somewhere close to that, we are looking at the performance of Parliament from the following parameters. Have they performed their oversight role? What is the quality of their legislation? Are they worth the amount of money they are paid? And a lot more. And there has been a midterm audit of this 9th Parliament by a certain group, which this morning will be sharing with us what their findings are and what are some of the mitigating or postulations they are putting on the table to ensure that things become right, or also giving a pat on the back where they feel Parliament has done a tremendous job. Now, you may wish to understand and know that perhaps few people have accused this Parliament of doing a tremendous job. Will this group be one of them? That's what we can wait and see when we return with the details of the big story. A very good morning and welcome to Morning at NTV's Big Story. My name is Simon Kasiati. I'm joined by a gentleman known as Job Kaija. You are the coordinator, Citizens Mobilization at the NGO Forum. We are seeing with us the Uganda Governance Monitoring Platform report, which has been gathering its information since 2009, and of course in the process of implementing what we now know as the Citizens Manifesto. And part of what you do is ensuring that governance institutions, and very specifically parliaments, do meet the expectations of the citizens who vote it into power.
Yeah.
And this time around, we are told that you did issue a midterm report, or should I say an audit of the 9th Parliament. You may wish to bring us to speed on what exactly this is all about.
Okay, good morning, viewers, and thank you, Simon, for hosting me. Now, just really to give some sort of background to this, as you may all have heard, that in 2009 we started on a process to generate what we call a Citizens Manifesto, which really is a document that entails what citizens felt are those demands that they had before the next government and leaders. Now, we did gather views on citizens' interests before elected leaders, including the president, members of parliament, LC5, LC3, and LC1. And those are contained in a document called the Citizen Manifesto. Now, from the Citizen Manifesto, we extracted 11 key issues which citizens were specifically directing to Parliament as an institution and its members. Now, we felt that based on these different issues that citizens felt needed to be responded to by Parliament, we could then start tracking the extent to which Parliament as an institution is delivering on these different issues.
What are these issues?
Now, the issues are 11 in number. I may not mention all of them, but just quickly, one of them was on legislation. So citizens felt that Parliament needed to review the different legislations that had been passed and repeal those that they felt that were anti-people, obnoxious, draconian, and really not in citizen interests.
Let's stop right there. And how has this Parliament so far, midway their term, performed with regard to this?
Now, in regard to this, of course, there are different aspects on which we assessed Parliament in that particular standard.
Job, let's not try to beat around the bush. Let's bite the bullet as it comes in. On a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is not performing and 10 is exceeding all expectation, where would you rank?
We would rank them 4, and I would give reasons for that.
No, that one they will give as to why they have not made it to 8 and only 4.
No. I don't want to give reasons as to why they have not made it, but I want to justify the 4. Why we scored them 4.
That sounds very good.
We scored them 4 because one is Parliament had tried in a way to pass some human rights related laws. For instance, the Anti-Torture Act. Okay, but the question is it being implemented? Now, the other issue is that they came up with a human rights checklist.
They are not an implementing agency.
They are not an implementing agency, but they play oversight. So if a law is not being implemented, Parliament can do something about it. But also the other issue is that they passed a human rights checklist, which actually is supposed to be used. I mean, all the laws that they pass are supposed to be subjected to that checklist to ask the question that do these laws actually meet the different human rights concerns that are supposed to be adhered to. Now, what we find is that, interestingly, some of the laws that Parliament has passed actually instead negate the other good laws that they passed, but also do not conform to the human rights checklist.
Are you speaking to the anti-homosexuality bill, for example?
No, I will not quickly go to the anti-homosexuality bill.
But it's just certainly one of those.
But, well, there are several contradictions, but I'll talk about the Public Order Management Act, for instance, which, first of all, was passed amidst wide criticism from civic rights organizations and citizens, but also the same law was passed without quorum, which for us we find quite appalling.
Let's get down to the remuneration of members of parliament, or even their PACs for that matter. When you look at this 9th parliament, are we looking at a parliament, and of course we are bouncing this off their presence in parliament. We know that for the most part we've seen attendance of parliament, or the absence of which in unprecedented, you know, there's this famous picture that shows the Right Honourable Deputy Speaker Olanya presiding over a house that had no more than members of parliament you can count on your 10 fingers. And these are guys who are earning huge salaries and allowances, who have these great packs, who have got a 25 billion shillings car park with a 20 billion security system yet to be installed, with all sorts of amenities and incentives. When you bounce that off with the amount of work they are able to deliver to the expectation of citizens, do you think this 9th parliament is worth the paper on which it's written?
Now, first I need to talk about the demand that citizens made in relation to that particular aspect. Citizens felt that members of parliament, first of all, needed to review their own salary. Okay? Not upwards, but downwards. And the other thing that they expected was to make sure that parliament puts in place a sort of body that determines the emoluments, but also that makes sure that the emoluments of members of parliament are equitable, but that the emoluments of the other public servants are also equitable to them. Now,
and across the board
and
kind
across
of
the board,
situation, where you have more like how you have the Judicial Service Commission, you can also have, you know, the
Salaries Commission, a Salaries Commission that looks at salaries of all the different public entities and not just members of parliament.
Members of parliament run roughshod and determining what their emoluments.
Exactly. Parliament is the only institution in this country that determines their salary. I think it is the only body that determines its own salary. Even NGOs, we don't determine our salaries. Someone else determines what we should receive.
And I'm sure the president too doesn't determine
and the president doesn't, because parliament determines
and
the
since
salary.
parliament is the body that can change that by way of legislating on it, putting an ordinance in place or any law, then clearly that is not about to happen in at least our lifetime.
Yeah, well, we thought that Parliament would be considerate enough and also transparent to us and accountable to make sure that the different qualities of transparency are espoused. But in particular to that question that you asked, what we find is that most of the emoluments of the members of Parliament are actually being contested by a wide percentage of citizens that were interviewed for this assessment. For instance, over 50.4% felt that members of parliament did not deserve the emoluments they are receiving. But
why do they say so? Because these are the same citizens who go to members of parliament to seek for school fees for their children, burial fees for their kith and kin, who go to them for every sort of domestic and personal desire. Why wouldn't they want their member of parliament to earn so much, more like Robin Hood, rob from the state and distribute to the poor?
Exactly. Of course, you see that if you look at the roles and responsibilities of a member of parliament, buying coffins and paying for school fees is not one of those.
No, that seems to be what they actually do more than actually legislate.
They actually do that.
Who never speak at all in the chambers of parliament, but certainly will never miss at any village function in their constituency.
Yeah, they do that, but is that what a citizen is paying for? Is it worth the money that we are giving these members of parliament?
The travesty is that the citizen demands more of the member of parliament being with them in wallowing in their little mud in their local constituencies, as opposed to being in the August House and deliberating on issues that will take them to the highest
Simon,
level.
interestingly, when you ask citizens whether their members of parliament have actually been going back to fraternize with them or even engage with them on some of the issues of common concern, they say we have not seen these guys ever since we voted for them.
So where do they go, these characters?
So I think members of parliament, and this is one of the findings that we find in the report, is that they seem to be preoccupied with so many other things, making money. I mean, one of the areas where we assessed them was on the conduct of members of parliament. Many of them are spending time drinking. You've seen them being arrested for drink driving. Many of them are spending a lot of time in
marrying second wives,
dubious engagements. Yeah, marrying second wives. I mean, they're entitled to their conjugal rights. But I mean, you see that we are having a parliament that seems to be focusing on their own individual needs. Okay,
so they are highly pecuniary.
They are
selfish.
Selfish, we could say that, because if you look at some of the actions, the benefits that have accrued to this parliament, things like buying iPads for the members of parliament, apparently to save on paper. When we go further, dig deeper and find out whether iPads have actually reduced on the cost of paper, and actually our results show that the cost of paper
is the same.
It is the same. It hasn't changed. Okay, if you look at purchase of vehicles, every member of parliament received, I think, over 140 million shillings. 105 million shillings to buy vehicles. But the question is, was it worth it? I mean, did they deserve that from the taxpayer, from the national coffers, to buy vehicles for individual gain? When you look at the manner in which parliament is behaving, receiving, some of them have been accused of receiving bribes, unfortunately, from the executive, either to pass through some legislations. You remember the loan oil, money apparently exchanged hands. You remember the marriage and divorce bill, money exchanged hands apparently for them to conduct consultations. Did they conduct the consultations?
That's the million-dollar question.
Exactly.
So in other words, no one can accuse this parliament of really being up to the task. But let's look at what seems to play out in the public domain that gives them a bit of kudos. These members of parliament are known to put in place a very wonderful performance when it comes to accountability committees. We see them grilling suspects, threatening to arrest them, poking fingers into them, shredding them into minced meat. I mean, you've seen them performing very impeccably with the NSSF probe, and you've seen them, you know, quizzing permanent secretaries, accusing them of this and all that. Can we cut them some slack and say perhaps this is some good coming in from a lot of bad?
Well, of course, one of the demands that citizens made in the Citizen Manifesto was for members of parliament to be able to play an effective oversight over the executive. Now, from what we see on TV, and for those of us that attend these different accountability committees, PAC and others, they seem to be doing a good job. But the question is, because we've seen
the facade, you know,
yeah,
like the act they put
on face value,
on face
value, we see them doing a good job.
And you've not had some talk going around that some of the things are stage managed for us in the press, you know, to as if show that someone is really boisterous. But when you follow a particular member of parliament the night before he appears before a committee, who he meets, or how they talk, and what eventually happens in the committee, you may be amazed.
I have had those allegations from some friends that are quite closer to the powers that be, but I don't have evidence to say that, you know, money exchange hands here and there or something of that nature.
Maybe the evidence in the fact that you huff and puff in a parliamentary committee and expose all this sort of rot, and there seems to be nothing that's being done.
Exactly.
Your report just becomes part of the shelving material for your library, gathering dust and being eaten by vermites.
Exactly. And for us, one of the findings in this report is that, yes, when you read committee reports, when you look at what's going on in the media, etc., Parliament looks like they're performing, okay? But whether actually the people that are summoned to appear before committees end up being
prosecuted or
put to task is another issue. Of course, somebody the other day indicated that the role of Parliament is merely advisory. Now, that also brings in a different dynamic.
Well, I remember saying that when they issued this report that they should terminate the ESCOM contract, and I did remember saying that, yes, Parliament is within its right to advise the executive on what course of action they should, but also the executive is under its own prerogative to take that advice or to shun it.
Exactly.
And we are hoping that in this case they shun that advice. But as we conclude this, members of Parliament did attend the launch of this midterm audit report. From where you sit, when you told them this that you're sharing with me, what was their reaction? Did they pat you back and say, you know us very well? Or they say, you are just going ahead pouring on us cold water and thinking that you're doing a tremendous job, yet in essence you are lying? Do these people believe this report?
Actually, interestingly, the members of Parliament that attended did actually say this was a good report, okay? But they put a disclaimer and told us, but you know, members of parliament, they perform their duties under difficult conditions. You know, the executive influence over us.
So actually, your conditions under which you perform your duties job are any easier? Do those members of parliament know what it means like to wake up every day at 4:30 a.m. to be here on this morning show, when for them they won't appear in parliament Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday? So how can they claim that their conditions are so difficult? Do they know the conditions of a guy who digs trenches to put in broadband cables? Everybody of us does a job and we do it under very difficult conditions. The question is, how do you attain the result?
Yeah, you see, the members of parliament, and in a way, for me, I would agree with them to the extent that generally the operating environment for anybody that is engaging on politics in this country is quite murky. It is not progressive. Okay. So even members of parliament, despite their selfish interests and misgivings that we have about them, they also operate within the same sort of context that we are operating.
Sadly, they are the same
as civil society.
Yeah, sadly, for them, unlike you, civil society, or we journalists who can do nothing about the situation, members of parliament are well within the mandate of doing something about their situation.
Exactly.
But do they do it? I think they prefer it that way.
And I wanted to say,
it's been a pleasure. We'll be here till the chickens come, but certainly we must put a cap to this. And of course, thank you for joining us and sharing with us what the insights of this midterm audit report were. Unless you have one final thing in 1 second.
Yeah, I think the final thing that I would like to say is that citizens need to get interested in the affairs of parliament. Because you see, we have so many unserious people in this august house that are spending too much time just amassing wealth, wasting a lot of time doing things that are not developmental and that are not progressive for this country. So citizens should actually take keener interest and get involved in the affairs of parliament and how parliament is performing.
Thank you, Job. You wouldn't have said it very more succinctly. And let's take a short break. When we return, it's Simon Says.
Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Under lock and key with the 24-hour security surveillance, the story of what happens inside has only been partially told. For the very first time, we take you inside Luzira prison. With our cameras rolling from the compound to the wards, this is the story inside Luzira prison.
On the next episode, brought to you by
At Orange, we know you want to do more on the internet. That's why we bring you happy hour day and night.
That child you say you're carrying, is it Alcino's or Roberto's? What? Benny ran away from the police?
Salary jobs didn't work and you decided to be a street vendor. Without a license, you know it's illegal.
I can't believe this. He's so selfish. What a bastard.
She's carrying his child.
You can download movies at the lowest prices and never fast from Orange. Dial *133# to buy a data bundle. Happy hour changes with Orange. Today changes with Orange.
You're watching with Mbabazi and Molondo.
If you're just joining us, welcome to the show this morning at NTV, live from the Kampala Serena Hotel and the International Conference Center. My name is Brian Mlondo. Now, before the break, we had Mr. Kaija, who was talking about citizen participation, especially in terms of governance. And he said citizens feel that MPs need to review their own salary, not upwards, but downwards. And some of the laws that Parliament has passed instead negate the human rights checklist. And of course, he said we scored them for because they tried in a way to pass the human rights laws and checklist. And of course, these comments can be found on our Twitter handle at Morning at NTV. You can go there and follow us and start the conversation. Most of you answering, of course, today's question of the day, and you tell us there are 9 presidents. And of course, we'll be contacting those people that stand a chance to walk away with a mag from Morning at NTV. Our Facebook page is also open, Morning at NTV. Now, last week, I told you I'd bring Dr. Nesta back, and most of you are very excited, though most of you are very fearful that, what? This thing is actually serious, it can kill. Let me just share with you more statistics because it also totally blew my mind. In 2010, it caused about 61,000 deaths, down from the 227,000 in 1990. What are we talking about? Tetanus, and how deadly it can get if you do not do something about it. We'll be right back. Been neglecting that wound for a very long time, well, you're probably breeding a grenade, a bomb that is about to just blow up anytime, and that is what we call tetanus. Dr. Nesta Mbabazi this morning joining us. Morning.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you so much for joining us. Yes. With Mulago Hospital, where else?
St. Jordan Clinic, SAS Clinic, yeah, only that.
The man is all over the whole place. Thank you so much for joining us. Last week, we kind of cheated you, and you were starting to give us some very good information. But we had, because of time, we had to, you know, cut the segment. But I brought you back today, especially for people who never watched this. How serious is tetanus?
Thank you very much, Brian. You know, even in the Bible they say that My people perish because of lack of knowledge.
Yes.
That's what God said about his people. So I think fellow Ugandans, we should really stop perishing because of just lacking knowledge. Tetanus is very, very serious. The chances, once you get tetanus, the chances of recovering are very slim, especially for adults. The mortality is much higher. Very old people and very young ones. Children who are baby who have just been born, when they get tetanus, they have a high chance of dying. People who are already old, adults like me and you, if we get tetanus, also have a very high chance of dying. So at the extremes of ages, it is very highly fatal. I am saying almost 95% can die. So if you get 10 people with tetanus, 9 will die. So isn't it worse than Ebola? Ebola is, I think they are saying 70% mortality. So this is much worse.
I was really freaked out last week, so that's why I brought you back to talk more about this. And, you know, last week I asked you, okay, it's tetanus. Most of us just relate it to the wound. But in the medical world, how do you define it?
So tetanus, basically, in the medical world, we define it as a disease that affects the nerves and muscles of the body, arising from presence of a toxin that has been generated or excreted by a tetanus bacteria. That tetanus bacteria is called Clostridium tetani. That is the name of the bacteria that causes tetanus. So that Clostridium tetani is a germ that is in our environment, is in the soil, is in the environment. So once it enters onto your body, usually on the wound, it begins to multiply. And once it multiplies and grows, it begins secreting a toxin. That toxin is called tetanospasmin. That toxin will enter the body through a nerve. There is always a nerve everywhere on your body, because that's why when I touch you, you feel.
Yes.
The reason you feel is because there's a nerve at that point.
Yes.
Now, tetanospasmin, that toxin enters that nerve and then it begins to move from that wound inside the body. So if it had entered from here, it begins moving until it reaches at the beginning of the nerve. Now, at that point, where the nerve begins, then it will do what? It will begin stimulating the muscles.
Well, some of the pictures are quite graphic, so we warn you. What exactly is that? That's a baby.
That is a young baby who has just been born, and this baby has signs of tetanus. You can see the mouth. I talked about it last Wednesday, that when somebody gets tetanus, he gets a locked jaw. So the jaw becomes it cannot open. Like that one, the jaw is locked, it cannot open. That person wants to open the mouth, but the mouth cannot open. The mouth is deviated on one side. So he's in a form of being spastic. He's rigged. So the muscles, because they have been overstimulated, that child's mouth is in spasms. It cannot open. That baby cannot breastfeed. Those hands are rigged. They are held in flexion and they are rigged. The baby cannot move the hands freely. So if the child is in spasms and cannot move freely, that baby, you are seeing the neck is retracted.
Yes.
The neck is retracted, the hands are stiff, the baby cannot voluntarily. So he's in spasms. The muscles are in spasms because of overstimulation by that chemical I've told you, the toxin, tetanospasmin, that has come from the tetanus bacteria.
Wow, this is some very serious stuff.
Serious disease.
Well, the diagnosis. First of all, how do you diagnose? As an ordinary person, how do I know that it's starting, probably developing some tetanus?
Okay. So basically, it is really scary. But when you as a person, if you begin seeing yourself getting involuntary movements, I talked about it last time. If you begin feeling your neck is if you usually begin with a neck paining you, you feel you cannot move you cannot open your mouth. Your mouth is like rocked, being held by like something like a rock, like a padlock. So you cannot open your mouth. You cannot move your mouth freely. You feel your hands, you cannot move them freely. or you begin feeling abdominal movements, you get your abdomen being hard, you cannot move your abdominal muscles freely, and it's painful. Any of those things, if they begin happening, then you can get worried that tetanus might be coming. But I wish no one can experience such a thing. With this knowledge that we are getting, let us go out and prevent that disease. Because when it begins, you even not know what is beginning. You'll just be in pain. You know, you're not like yourself. The whole body will be aching. The muscles are aching. They are stiff. They are rigid. You are no longer soft and fluid the way you're supposed to be.
Right. Well, on our screens, some of the signs. There's fever, sweating, elevated blood pressure, rapid heart. These seem to be the normal, you know, for any other disease.
Of course, these are very general. You know, the fever can be malaria. Fever, sweating can be malaria. High blood pressure can be stress, can be anxiety, can be. So these are general things. And so you will not be able to say, I have a fever, now I have tetanus. No. Usually, those ones are non-specific. And their fever is actually a bit rare, except when that wound also causes other bacterial infections. But most times fever is rare. But as I told you, when you have tetanus, you will find yourself stiff. That is the most important thing that you should get you scared. You become stiff. The neck becomes stiff, yet you are conscious. You know, I told you meningitis has some resemblance with tetanus. It can also give you convulsions, which people may mistake as what? But it is usually somebody's consciousness in most times. But in tetanus, you have spasms which look like convulsions, but you are conscious. You are aware of everything taking place. Your neck is stiff, your mouth is you are going on, you are aware. So that is the difference. Right. But other general things to differentiate. But most importantly is also you have to know that you have a wound somewhere that you have also neglected or you didn't go to hospital. And so when you have that and then you begin getting those symptoms, then you get worried.
Well, we asked people to send some questions on our Facebook page. So James here says, what do I do if my child was immunized of tetanus and gets a wound? Do I still go back and get another vaccine?
Thank you very much, James. Yeah, that is good. If a child is immunized for tetanus, usually they do it in the first 3 months of life. 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks. That vaccine they are giving has tetanus vaccine in it. But as I told you last time, tetanus vaccine wears out after 5 years. The immunity that you get by getting a tetanus vaccine wears down. It becomes less unprotective after 5 years. The antibodies go down. So you need what we call a booster. So even all parents, I'm urging you, your children who have made 5 years, you should find a way of taking them to a hospital, a clinic where they have tetanus vaccine and they get a booster dose. And they continue doing it every 5 years.
Every 5 years?
Yes.
Even for adults?
Even adults. You should continue getting a tetanus vaccine every 5 years. Because the one you got 5 years ago wears down. If you get a wound and you don't do something, you can get tetanus.
Wow.
Right now, most of the children whom we are getting who are older are children who are in the ages of 7 years, 10 years, 11 years. Because the tetanus vaccines they got when they were babies at 6 weeks, 10 weeks, and 6 and 3.5 months, their vaccine has been worn down. Has worn down, so the immunity is no longer there. When they get wounds, and remember they are the ones who are very active, praying, climbing, falling, and what. So when they get those wounds, they are getting tetanus. And unfortunately, most of them, I told you, they die.
Right.
Almost over 90% they die. So that's why I'm urging parents, I'm urging everybody, even as adults, let us go and get a tetanus vaccine every 5 years.
All right. Emily says, don't some of the things we are told to treat our wounds cause tetanus, like salt, putting salt on the wound?
Okay. Yeah, tetanus, as I told you, is largely present. It is very widely present in even this. So dust here has some tetanus bacteria in it. So it is widely present, but mainly it is in dirty things, soil, cow dung. And so some people who put cow dung on their wounds, who put...
people put cow dung on their wounds?
Some people put anything.
Wow.
Even they put cow dung on babies' coats. cow dung and other things, dirty things, that they tell them they will dry it quickly and make it clean. Actually, they are the ones who introduce tetanus to their babies.
Wow.
Mothers who give birth on the road and they didn't get or giving birth in a dirty environment at home in the dust, then that dust goes on the cord of the baby will get tetanus, may get tetanus. That's why also mothers who are pregnant must get tetanus vaccine if they want to protect their babies who are unborn.
All right.
When they are
I am told about where a wound, say, may, what do you call it? What do you call it? I've forgotten the medical word. But
you can just describe.
I think I know it in Luganda, I think. But I've forgotten the medical one. But if you do not, for example, if you have to put salt, today you put a lot of salt on the wound. Tomorrow you put less salt. I think it's called okutana or something.
Yeah, okutana. Yeah, that's a wound which may be like tending to be going to get healed.
The wound becomes septic. That's what I wanted.
Then septic.
Yes.
Now a wound becoming septic is usually when it has been neglected, it was not getting dressed properly, and then the bacteria enter there. Usually, even any bacteria, the bacteria, then they begin causing multiplication and causing pus. That's what we call septic. I wouldn't encourage people to put salt on their wound, because salt, yes, we sometimes use saline water to clean wounds, but salt, you cannot measure what is adequate amount that can help or what can harm. So I would not encourage people to put salt on their wound. If you have a wound, go to a nearest clinic. We have antiseptics. We have iodine, we have Savlon, we have all those antiseptics.
Right.
The doctor will look at the wound and see what is the appropriate dressing that is required for that wound. And of course, you get tetanus vaccine. And another important message is that do not wait for the wound to fast after a week, see whether it is becoming like a bit septic with pus, and then now let me go for tetanus. It should be given when the wound is still fresh.
I think that was my next question. Someone here asked, what is the incubation period, both in adults and babies? Adults.
Even for adults, okay, it's not in the national program that the adults can get. But I mean, if you have a friend, you can find out. Please, I have not gotten tetanus vaccine for 5 years. Just give me a jab, because it is free, it is cheap. I mean, it is cheap.
Right.
If a clinic can give it to you at 5,000, it means maybe government can get it at 2,000 or 1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is really cheap. It can be available. Just you have to care about your life, and you'll get it.
Well, this is awesome. This is awesome. You can contact Dr. Nesta Mbabazi at Mulago Hospital. Also,
St. Jordan Clinic on Gayaza Road,
Kubiri.
Yes.
And SAS Clinic. And he can help you, do this. I know I'm doing Karango, but this man has given us, some good information. If you have spasms and stiffness in your jaw muscles, stiffness of your neck muscles, difficulty in swallowing, and painful body spasms, of course, other signs and symptoms like fever, sweating, elevated blood pressure, please make sure you go and get yourself a tetanus vaccine. Be sure that I'm going to get myself one. Because I think the last I did was when I was young. Can you imagine?
You see?
So more than 28 years later.
You have no protection now.
And I'm sure many people are like me. Go to our Facebook page, Morning at NTV, and you can get more of this information. But also tweet us at Morning at NTV and hashtag Everyday Life. And on Wednesday, we call it the Healthy Wednesday.
Can you also talk to our Minister of Health and Program people?
Minister of Health.
Yeah. They need to also make sure that there is an arrangement for Ugandans to stop dying of a preventable disease.
Yes.
Yes, I know we are constrained by resources, but our Minister of Health, they have a planning unit. Let them really go out and help people to stop dying.
Yes.
Children are coming from Chiliandongo, from Chivoga. They are coming when they are spasms like this. Really, in Uganda, 2014, this century, and we are still losing people to that disease. Our Minister of Health, we are calling upon him, Permanent Secretary, people of Commission of Planning, clinical services, whatever. We should ensure that every health center, from health center 2 or 3 or 4, there is a fridge full of tetanus vaccines, and everybody in the community is well informed that when you get a wound like this, go for tetanus vaccine. If you've not had a tetanus vaccine in 5 years, just walk to the health center, ask for a tetanus vaccine. Right. And really so that every Ugandan can stop dying of this senseless, unnecessary preventable disease.
Dr. Nesta, thank you so much for coming. I know some of my cameramen need some tetanus vaccines.
They should come and get it. They should find me in Mulago. I will give it to them for free if they don't have money for that.
Yeah, there are people who are just who need the tetanus vaccine, whether they have wounds or not. Well, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Isma and we'll be looking at the sports update. But also, we know one of our own, a journalist, died of tetanus a couple of months ago. What a shame. What a shame. So please take care of this. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
You're watching Morning at TV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Molondo.
A wife who you got through the office will be very insecure about you working in another place.
Always hunt up, don't hunt down.
You mean what? Go after your superior?
How dare you suggest that when a woman is aggressed against, we should look at the person who's been aggressed against?
Let the couple be. Let them sort out their issues. When they need you, then you come in.
Prostitution is being given a new brand.
All I know is that I connect people.
Let's not choose to open our zips and do whatever our urge is, because I don't think that an urge is stronger than your will to say no.
People attach a lot of questions, shame to HIV.
I do not believe that when you wear a short dress, you should be around.
Marrying a wife is like having assured sex.
Anytime you come, you must have.
Yes.
To raise a population that has no clue how to be men.
Can you bring out a quality family?
I don't get married for my family.
Men, every Wednesday only on NTV.
Welcome to Jazz with Isaiah, a musical venture that is entertaining.
I'm a prisoner, you're a prisoner too.
Educative.
It is not about just standing on stage.
Informative.
Jazz is a type of music from the African American background.
And inspiring.
I have a goal of breaking it down.
Kampala has been voted in the past as one of the favorite cities for tourists, one of the most peaceful cities. That is something that is changing.
Kale Kaihura, the Inspector General of Police, and President Yoweri Museveni, their alliance, they can only crack down or stop individual strikes and individual demonstrations. But I don't think they can stop the growth of militancy.
No holds barred.
Besigye and Lukwago have particular grievances against the government, some legitimate, some misguided.
You have a problem with it?
No, I ain't got no problem.
You don't use my mic, man. This is exposed mic.
I go deal with you personally.
XFB, it's officially back. Yeah, I'm in this heat with cats. It's what we do, baby. Put UG on the map. Now come my walk. Now come my walk. Now come my walk. Now come my walk. Hey.
Tedi Muganda yagala munne kututumuka abanyankole mweyagalidde mu Kampala abajja okulonda mwafunamu bibanja mu Uganda
I'm that dude, so they come and love it.
You're going to start paying for watching Exposed.
I wasn't born last night. I know these hoes ain't right.
You can bring everybody in parliament as long as they can wake up and vote for their NRM.
As long as the voters exercise their rights to elect their leaders, there was no need for term limits in Uganda.
I know him. I know how he operates. I know how he thinks.
There are ways you can go around these obstacles.
Why should I conduct myself as if I am Muyai?
It's absolutely true. I admired the President Museveni.
Is the ICC a first court targeting African leaders?
You cannot tell me that the whole trouble Kenya had revolved about only the 2 individuals.
The money is not in the budget of this financial year.
You can't beat God. You see, God is polygamous also. Look at Jeremiah chapter 31.
The security of this country will largely depend on the contribution that the people make.
On the next episode, brought to you by
Orange is the #1 internet provider, giving you the fastest internet speeds everywhere.
Destiny River.
Huh? Did he come to upset me? Did he come to upset Solano?
Calm down, Fred. Calm down. Keep calm, because if there's any kind of trouble, he will ruin the party.
Orange is the #1 internet provider. You can have the best internet experience in Uganda. Simply dial *133# to buy an internet bundle. Today changes with Orange.
18:09. Thank you so much for staying with us. Morning at NTV is the show that you're watching. Sports Update, powered by Isma Dakabachigongo. You're tweeting while driving?
Brian.
Yeah, but I knew, at least I knew you are on your way here.
The traffic in the past few days has been quite something. Actually, it took me over 3 hours driving a distance from Mukono to Chireka. Lasting from about 8:15 to after 11 p.m. Yeah, it's 40 minutes away, even less on another day. It took me over 3 hours, so it was the same this morning. This is a place I come to about 1:20 p.m., so it's a bit unfamiliar being here this early in this kind of environment with all these lights, because I'm used to our natural light in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah,
you know, yeah, if you stay, yeah,
yeah, you know, even know
that's why now Manu is losing. You know,
can you imagine can you imagine there is a song that goes Basajja Muzareke Weru. So when you say Kasavu Kanyama, I'm thinking
say you see well, let's look at cricket first this morning. The new national team coach arrives today. Isma, tell us about his immediate, short, mid-term and long-term challenges.
I think as Peter Caston comes into Uganda today from South Africa, many will be familiar with the name because of the great South African opener Gary Caston, who led India to the World Cup back in 2011. But he's not Gary, he's only Peter, and just the second name is the same. Caston has been working as a commentator for SABC, as a cricket commentator, has played for South Africa, both at ODI and test level. Now he comes here trying to get a team playing well ahead of that World Cricket League Division 3 tournament in Malaysia this month. I was going to say next month because I was still stuck in September, and forgetting that today is October 1st. Yeah. But I think among his immediate short and medium-term goals has got to be to get the team batting well, because that tournament in Malaysia will be a very tough one, where Uganda will play teams like Bermuda, Nepal, the USA. Remember, this is a tournament that Uganda was supposed to host that was taken from us by the International Cricket Council.
We had done all these preparations.
When we had done all these preparations, including an ambulance to escort the teams and police patrol cars to move with the teams from the hotel to the venues. And then it was deemed that Uganda was extremely insecure after that story of the 19 Al-Shabaab suspects that were arrested just a few weeks ago. Tournament was taken out for that reason. So,
I wonder what Syria would be, a state of emergency?
Probably. But Uganda has won this tournament, the World Cricket League Division 3 before. That is back in 2007. And they need to win it to get back in Division 2. So Peter Caston will only be judged on Uganda doing well in Malaysia. Whatever other story they would have to tell about how well he's performed will be null and void, because it's about going to do the business in Malaysia and get back in Division 2.
Well, he comes in when we're going to compete for that. He has a lot of...
Yeah, and he has very little time.
Yeah, very little time. Now, Riley, this is straight up, because is it advantageous for our drivers that the independence rally will be one that they're used to?
It's the same route that they use for the Pearl of Africa Uganda rally, at least 40% of the route. And when it gets underway on Saturday, drivers will, at least on day one, have the same route they used on the Pearl of Africa rally. I was there in the rain, and I thought it was quite a tricky route. There were so many turns and for drivers to deal with. For us, the fans, it was a good place because you could be able to watch 4 cars in a row come into the section and get out, and that's what we fans want to see. But I think for many of them who are going for this and look forward to win the National Rally Championship, especially Ronald Sebuguzi, they'll be pleased to know that this is a route they've raced not too long ago. And 87 kilometers, 210 of which is competitive, starting on Saturday at the Matuga Zion Estate Star City, and then thereafter on Sunday, where they'll go to routes in Luwero, most of it in Luwero, and then eventually return to Matuga to finish. So I've got to say that for every driver who doesn't do well in this one, when you're part of the Pearl of Africa Uganda rally, should be extremely disappointed, because not so often a rally driver is given the same route for 2 successive events, so they should all be in a good state for this one.
Right. Well, let's talk golf now. How far is Uganda performing in the Africa President's Cup in Zambia?
First of all, they're taking part in this for the very first time after winning the East African Nations Challenge in that thrilling fashion in NTV not too long ago, before the Uganda Open. But now in South Africa, down in Zambia, they are not doing that well. Out of the teams that are there, Uganda is currently 6th, and they are a mammoth 26 strokes behind the leaders, who are Zimbabwe. Of course, Zimbabwe, one of the stronger countries in golf outside of South Africa, because they have all these golf academies. So it's always either Zimbabwe or Zambia. And Zimbabwe chalked up 220 gross on day one. You enter 6 golfers, and only the 4 best scores are considered. But if you have to think about it, Uganda's best score, which was made by Adolf Muhumuza, was a 7 over 80. Which is as bad a score as all the others, because Willie Chitata, the Uganda Open champion, could only manage 82. Peter Sendal managed 84, and then Philip Kasozi, the captain, managed 85. So I think at the end of day one, there's a lot of gap to make up for the Ugandan golfers down in Zambia, and I don't think at this point in time anyone will think about how well they'll perform in the President's Cup in terms of winning, because those scores don't represent a team that is going to be among the conversation right towards the end. 26 strokes behind the leaders, a huge margin that Willie Chitata and company have got to make. There's a lot of work, but there's still a lot of golf to play. They should be on the course in the next few minutes, and then tomorrow through the week, and we'll see how well they'll perform eventually.
Well, the Uganda Premier League is also on. Of course, some people have said, why are we copying the name of another league? But the UPL is on. Yeah, that's kind of fun. I'm getting used to it. Villa lost yesterday, but somehow Kigonya seemed to have stolen the show.
Yeah, you would have thought that after Villa had won their first 2 games, they were going to have an easy walk in the park against Police. They travelled to Kavumba yesterday and scored the first goal through Karim Ndugwa, who has been a talk of town lately. He did score against Lueza and scored for Cranes in that Namutima campaign when they were in Gulu. But thereafter, Police responded with 2 goals in a short spell. Eventually, Omar Kasumba, who has already scored 3 goals in this campaign, gave Police the lead, which they never squandered, as they won their game by 2-1. So for some reason, it should have been a story about how well Villa played, or how poor Villa were, or how good Police were, because Police have now risen to the summit of the league with 7 points, the same tally as Bright Stars. But a goalkeeper, Matthias Chigonya, the last time I saw him, I think, was playing for Kampala University in the University League, scored a goal that gave Bright Stars victory, I think, against Bull Bidiko. Where does
Is it a free kick?
Yes, it's a free kick. Just like in the days when we knew Rogerio Seni.
Let's just get that free kick again.
Yeah, he's the one in red.
Yes.
Matthias Chigona. I've seen him. I think he came through the ranks at Villa. And that's the free kick. Memorable moment. How often do goalkeepers do score these kind of goals?
What a useless goalkeeper.
No, but you know, Brian, there are goalkeepers who have made a habit of scoring this in plenty. Remember the Paraguayan, Jose Luis Chilavat, and currently Rogerio Seni, the Sao Paulo goalkeeper from Brazil, has scored so many of these. I think he has over 140 goals from free kick situations and penalties. So, Matthias Chigonya. From nowhere, I didn't think I would come here this morning and talk about a goalkeeper scoring. but that was a first for
That's
him this season.
brilliant. That's
Actually, there are few I remember in this league who have been free kick takers. Probably Hannington Kalisura, who plays for Reshama these days, used to take a few penalties in his earlier days at Police. His team actually, Reshama, lost 2 cases by 3 goals in yesterday. Michael Birungi on the score sheet there. And then the others got to be Andrew Jombe, the one I remember in his earlier days at Villa, currently lives in the USA and studied in Chibuli. He's one of those who used to take a few free kicks and penalties. But that was Matthew Chigonya's moment. A brilliant free kick it was for him to get his side over the line.
Well, that's brilliant. I love keepers that take initiative. That's very brilliant.
You wish Chesney took, sir.
Well, he's been in the team of the week many times, so I just need to score a goal. Yesterday, Champions League was back. No Zlatan, no problem for PSG.
3-2 winners over Barcelona last night. A game that I thought, for everything that PSG are or are not, it's been about how well they play without Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I remember everyone was berating them for that loss last year to Chelsea when Zlatan was out injured actually for that particular one. But in this one, to go and beat up on Barcelona has got to be a testament of how good PSG have grown this season. But on the other hand, as Barcelona considered their first goals of the season, the old cries about how Barcelona are poor at set pieces came back. David Luiz among the scorers there, as was Marco Verratti and Blaise Matuidi. But Messi and Neymar
Messi,
got
of course,
goal.
doing what he has to do.
Yeah, his 68th goal in the UEFA Champions League there. Now 3 behind Raul, who is on 71, has got to be quite something. But for PSG to go and win a game, and I remember saying yesterday that there must be a team that is devoid of confidence. They've only won 2 of their last 6 fixtures, and they are hosting Barcelona, and not many teams even get a chance when they play well against Barcelona. So for PSG to go and win this kind of game, I've got to say it's a testament of why clubs are built for this kind of... Probably PSG players are not signed to beat Nice, to beat Toulouse, to beat Caen. They are signed to beat Barcelona. That's the kind of quality they bring in. And to go and win the game by 3-2, and they could have actually increased the margin there as Javier Pastore got that chance and didn't bury it. It's got to be a very good result for PSG at a time when they're not getting that many victories in the league.
Right. Well, Bayern won in Moscow, despite their challenges, getting out of the hotel, blah, blah, blah. But why aren't they cruising like the Bayern we know?
Yeah, I thought last night they didn't play very well in the second half, but they were brilliant in the first half. They almost pounded CSKA Moscow into submission. And eventually when the goal came from Thomas Muller from the spot, when Mario Götze was brought down, I thought Bayern deserved their lead. But for all the success they had, they are not the same Bayern from the year when they won 5 trophies. That is 2013. So that has been part of the problem. And I thought some of it, they were a bit slow in their build-up. Pep Guardiola loves his teams to retain the ball, and sometimes they lack penetration. Not that they are devoid of confidence, but that's what Bayern have been this season. But to go and get the result, I think in the Champions League at the group stage, it's about getting the points you need to progress. Then thereafter, you can deal with the tactical adjustments according to what team you're playing. So they are now 2-2. Both games have been 1-0 margins against Man City and CSKA Moscow. I think Bayern will be pleased to have 6 points at this point in time. Not many teams have 6. Not even Barcelona do have 6 points at this point in time. Not even Chelsea.
Well, that's Man City against AS Roma. That goal at home, isn't it going to make it harder for them?
I think it will make it very hard for Manchester City. They look so naive in Europe. And I remember the other 3 weeks ago I was telling you that sometimes I think Manchester City suffer from an inferiority complex in Europe, especially against the bigger teams like Bayern, against Real Madrid. I remember when they were leading against Real Madrid not too long, I think 2 seasons ago, by 2-1 in the 88th minute. They lost the game by 3-2. Now, when you're playing at home against Roma, who play on the counter-attack, you cannot offer them all that kind of space. That's what Man City were doing. After taking the lead through Sergio Aguero, thereafter I thought they could slow the game down. They offered Roma a lot of space. Maicon had a chance to bury them. Eventually, Totti did with that goal. Javinho had a chance to seal the game, and Joe had to pull off 2 brilliant saves to give Manchester City the result. And for me, whatever Manuel Pellegrini believes in as a manager, because I think he believes in this total football where it's about attack, and attack. That's why I went with 2 strikers. I thought, for me, sometimes in Europe, you've got to change. The best teams in Europe are able to change according to the game.
Javinho on fire.
And here, Man City didn't change. That's why Javinho could have punished them. And they are making it very hard for themselves. They now have only 1 point. Roma have 4. Bayern have 6. That means Man City will be playing catch-up for the rest of the campaign. And that's very hard. That's going to make it very hard for them.
Let's talk about Chelsea. Very mature display in Lisbon, which got them over the line.
I thought by the time the Nemanja Matic goal came, Chelsea should have deserved better than the result they got. I remember watching them in the Capital One Cup just last week, and I want to relate this to the kind of chances Andre Schürrle was missing. Andre Schürrle should have scored 2 hat-tricks in that game. One in the first half, another in the second against Bolton. Now, in this game...
2 hat-tricks?
Yeah,
those
exactly.
Are 6 goals.
Those are 6 goals. That's how many chances he had. Now, in Lisbon, Andre Schürrle should have scored at least twice. He wasted so many chances. Luckily, he didn't have to pay for it because Matic came up with a big goal. Remember, Chelsea lost their first game, rather drew their first game of the group stages against Schalke. So they needed to come back in this one and get the result. And get the result they did. But on the other hand, they still were extremely wasteful. And that's a goal there from Matic coming onto the back post there to head it into the goal. In their yellow kit, they look like a bit like Barcelona. In that one. Yeah, good result, I think, for Mourinho. Very much well displayed against a very young Sporting Lisbon side that had the former Manchester United winger, Nani, and a commendable result for them.
Well, tonight we'll have Atletico against Juventus. We'll also have Olympiacos against Malmo, right?
And then there is Juventus. Like you said, Juventus away to Atletico. Ludo Goretz at home to Real Madrid. Cristiano Ronaldo has a chance to break Raul's record. He has 68. If he scores 4 goals, he goes to 72 in the Champions League. Arsenal, without midfielders, and Arsene Wenger's joke that he could walk onto the pitch as a midfielder, host Galatasaray. They don't have Ramsey, they don't have Mikel Arteta, but Jack Wilshere will be fit for the game for the Arsenal. Then Liverpool travel to Switzerland to play Basel. Daniel Sturridge is still not fit, and Brendan Rodgers used his press conference yesterday to warn England against calling Daniel Sturridge to the side. And for a moment I thought, come on, you don't get to make a decision. Let England make the decision. He could be, whether he's playing for Liverpool or not because of fitness problems, probably should be given every chance like every other player. But Liverpool have, for me, Liverpool and Juventus have the toughest games tonight of the bigger boys in Europe.
In 30 seconds, why is Man U playing friendly games?
One of the directors actually gave an interview yesterday where he said Manchester United are on the brink of agreeing to play midweek friendlies to fill up for not playing in the Champions League. Of course, commercially, it's viable because it's Manchester United, even if they're not in Europe. Remember, they had a game that sat over 110,000 people in the USA against Real Madrid in the off-season. But this is outrageous. I've not heard of any team in Europe choose to go and play midweek friendly games because they're not in the Champions League. United have got to be a first, and if they pull it off, they are Manchester United. All right.
Well, I guess for me, I think they need the games because they need to make that quality better and better and better. Well, Isma will be back at 1:30 p.m. on Omumulian Sports Bar from Club Silk every Monday at 10 o'clock. Every time before we leave you, we hook you up with your African proverb. Check it out. Ashes fly back into the face of him who throws them.
Exactly. Yeah, the moment, literally when the action, the wind will always bring the ashes. So it's a bit like pointing a finger. You know, the mirror is, when you're pointing in the mirror at someone, that finger is pointing right back at you. So probably don't throw away things you need, things that are relevant. Because even ashes, when they are waste, for many people who use the charcoal stove, probably they are still relevant for fighting so many other things. So probably the best way to dispose them of is not to throw them away in the wind.
Right. Yeah. Well, my take home for you this morning is maybe be careful what you know how you deal, because you might get a boomerang. It will come back and hit you bad. Morning at NTV is the show, and of course Facebook and Twitter all open. Just to send us that SMS to 6565. There will be a code in the left-hand corner of your screen. NTV Mobi is also available. And until tomorrow, have a fantastic start to the month.
Bye-bye. With Simon Cutting and Brian